Hi everyone. I'm back and we're going to discuss the Israeli-Palestinian conflict here. I've been doing an enormous amount of research and I have a lot of information to share with you. I put up a video the other day about the Palestine Mandate, and this was a mandate that was instituted by Britain to oversee the rights of the Israeli people and the Palestinian people. And I put it up with a robotic voice, and I wasn't sure whether the articles came across clear or not. I mean, there are let's see how many. There are 28 articles. 28 articles in this mandate that Israel was supposed to follow. And I'm going to read these to you, and then I'm going to move on to another plan that was instituted, and very, very interesting. A lot of people take sides without knowing the facts, and I'm interested in facts on this channel. So this is why I've been digging in. I know back when these things took place, my head was somewhere else, like many of us. And now in this day, we don't have the history. We don't have any facts to look back upon. We hear people coming on YouTube saying this and that. We hear our politicians saying this, that, and the other thing. But who to believe? We can only believe what has been done and printed and factual. So I'm going to read this. This came through the Council of the League of Nations. It says, whereas the principal allied powers have agreed for the purpose of giving effect to the provisions of Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations to entrust to a mandatory selected by the said powers the administration of the territory of Palestine, which formerly belonged to the Turkish Empire, within such boundaries as may be fixed by them. Whereas the principal allied powers have also agreed that the mandatory should be responsible for putting into the effect the declaration originally made on November 2nd, 1917, by the government of His Britannic Majesty, and adopted by the said powers in favor of the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, it being clearly understood that nothing should be done which might prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. And whereas recognition has thereby been given to the historical connection of the Jewish people with Palestine and to the grounds for reconstituting their national home in that country. And whereas the principal allied powers have selected His Britannic Majesty as the mandatory for Palestine, and whereas the mandate in respect of Palestine has been formulated in the following terms and submitted to the Council of the League for approval. And whereas His Britannic Majesty has accepted the mandate in respect of Palestine and undertaken to exercise it on the behalf of the League of Nations in conformity with the following provisions, and whereas by the aforementioned Article 22, paragraph 8, it is provided that the degree of authority, control, and administration to be exercised by the mandatory, not having been previously agreed upon by the members of the League, shall be explicitly defined by the Council of the League of Nations. Confirming the said mandate defines its terms as follows. Article 1. The mandatory shall have full powers of legislation and of administration, save as they may be limited by the terms of this mandate. Article 2. The mandatory shall be responsible for placing the country under such political, administrative, and economic conditions as will secure the establishment of the Jewish national home as laid down in the preamble and the development of self-governing institutions, and also for safeguarding the civil and religious rights of all the inhabitants of Palestine, irrespective of race and religion. Article number 3. The mandatory shall, so far as circumstances permit, encourage local autonomy. Article number 4. An appropriate Jewish agency shall be recognized as a public body for the purpose of advising and cooperating with the administration of Palestine in such economic, social, and other matters as may affect the establishment of the Jewish national home and the interests of Jewish population in Palestine, and subject always to the control of the administration to assist and take part in the development of the country. The Zionist organization, so long as its organization and constitution are, in the opinion of the mandatory, appropriate, shall be recognized as such agency. So as long as they stay in line with the Palestine Mandate, the Zionist government stays in line with these agreements, they will be recognized as the agency. It shall take steps in consultation with His Britannic Majesty's government to secure the cooperation of all Jews who are willing to assist in the establishment of the Jewish national home. Article 5. The mandatory shall be responsible for seeing that no Palestine territory shall be ceded or leased to or in any way placed under the control of the government of any foreign power. Article number 6. The administration of Palestine, while ensuring that the rights and position of other sections of the populations are not prejudiced, shall facilitate Jewish immigration under suitable conditions and shall encourage, in cooperation with the Jewish agency referred to in Article 4, close settlement by Jews on the land, including state lands and wastelands not required for public purposes. Article number 7. The administration of Palestine shall be responsible for enacting a nationality law. There shall be included in this law provisions framed as to facilitate the acquisition of Palestinian citizenship by Jews who take up their permanent residence in Palestine. Article number 8. The privileges and immunities of foreigners, including the benefits of consular jurisdiction and protection as formerly enjoyed by the capitulation or usage in the Ottoman Empire shall not be applicable in Palestine, unless the powers whose nationals enjoyed the aforementioned privileges and immunities on August 1st, 1914, shall have previously renounced the right to their reestablishment, or shall have agreed to their non-application for a specific period. These privileges and immunities shall, at the expiration of the mandate, be immediately reestablished in their entirety, or with such modifications as may have been agreed upon between the powers concerned. Article number 9. The mandatory shall be responsible for seeing that the judicial system established in Palestine shall assure to foreigners as well as to natives a complete guarantee of their rights, respect for the personal status of the various peoples and communities, for their religious interests shall be fully guaranteed. In particular, the control and administration of WAKFs, WAKFS, shall be exercised in accordance with religious law and the dispositions of the founders. Article number 10. Pending the making of special extradition agreements relating to Palestine, the extradition treaties in force between the mandatory and other foreign powers shall apply to Palestine. Article number 11. The administration of Palestine shall take all necessary measures to safeguard the interests of the community in the connection with the development of the country, and, subject to any international obligations, except by the mandatory, shall have the full power to provide for public ownership or control of any of the natural resources of the country or of the public works, services, and utilities established or to be established therein. It shall introduce a land system appropriate to its needs, the needs of the country, having regard, among other things, to the desirability of promoting the close settlement and intensive cultivation of the land. The administration may arrange with the Jewish agency mentioned in Article 4 to construct or operate upon fair and equitable terms any public works, services, and utilities, and to develop any of the natural resources of the country, insofar as these matters are not directly undertaken by the administration. Any such arrangement shall provide that no profits distributed by such an agency, directly or indirectly, shall exceed a reasonable rate of interest on the capital, and any further profits shall be utilized by it for the benefit of the country in a manner approved by the administration. Article number 12. The mandatory shall be entrusted with the control of the foreign relations of Palestine and the right to issue exequaturs to councils appointed by foreign powers. He shall also be entitled to afford diplomatic and consular protection to citizens of Palestine when outside of its territorial limits. Article 13. All responsibility in connection with the holy places and religious buildings or sites in Palestine, including that of preserving existing rights and of securing free access to holy places, religious buildings and sites, and the free exercise of worship, while ensuring the requirements of public order and decorum is assumed by the mandatory, who shall be responsible solely to the League of Nations in all matters connected herewith, provided that nothing in this article shall prevent the mandatory from entering into such arrangements as he may deem reasonable with the administration for the purpose of carrying the provisions of this article into effect. And provided also that nothing in this mandate shall be construed as conferring upon the mandatory authority to interfere with the fabric or the management of purely Muslim sacred shrines, the immunities of which are guaranteed. Article number 14. A special commission shall be appointed by the mandatory to study, define, and determine the rights and claims in connection with holy places and the rights and claims related to the different religious communities in Palestine. The method nomination, the composition, and the functions of this commission shall be submitted to the Council of the League for its approval, and the commission shall not be appointed or enter upon its functions without the approval of the Council. Article 15. The mandatory shall see that complete freedom of conscience and the free exercise of all forms of worship, subject only to the maintenance of public order and morals, are ensured to all. No discrimination of any kind shall be made between the inhabitants of Palestine on the ground of race, religion, or language. No person shall be excluded from Palestine on the sole ground of his religious beliefs. The right each community to maintain its own schools for the education of its own members in its own language, while conforming to such educational requirements of a general nature as the administration may impose, shall not be denied or impaired. Article number 16. The mandatory shall be responsible for exercising such supervision over religious or eleemosynary bodies of faiths in Palestine as may be required for the maintenance of public order and good government. Subject to such supervision, no measures shall be taken in Palestine to obstruct or interfere with the enterprise of such bodies, or to discriminate against any representative or member of them on the ground of his religion or nationality. Article number 17. The administration of Palestine may organist on a voluntary basis. The administration of Palestine may organist on a voluntary basis the forces necessary for the preservation of peace and order, and also for the defense of the country, subject, however, to the supervision of the mandatory, but shall not use the term for purposes other than those above specified, saved with the consent of the mandatory, except for such purposes. No military, naval, or air forces shall be raised or maintained by the administration of Palestine. Nothing in this article shall preclude the administration of Palestine from contributing to the cost of the maintenance of the forces of the mandatory in Palestine. The mandatory shall be entitled at all times to the use of roads, railways, ports of Palestine for movement of armed forces and the carriage of fuel and supplies. Article number 18. The mandatory shall see that there is no discrimination in Palestine against the nationals of any state member of the League of Nations, including companies incorporated under its laws, as compared with those of the mandatory or of any foreign state in matters concerning taxation, commerce or navigation, the exercise of industries or professions, or in the treatment of merchant vessels or civil aircraft. Similarly, there shall be no discrimination in Palestine against goods originating in or destined for any of the said states, and there shall be freedom of transit under equitable conditions across the mandated area. Subject to, as aforesaid, and to the other provisions of this mandate, the administration of Palestine may, on the advice of the mandatory, impose such taxes and customs duties as it may consider necessary, and take such steps as it may think best to promote the development of the natural resources of the country and to safeguard the interests of the population. It may also, on the advice of the mandatory, conclude a special customs agreement with any state, the territory of which in 1914 was wholly included in the Asiatic Turkey or Arabia. Article 19. The mandatory shall adhere, on behalf of the administration of Palestine, to any general international conventions already existing, or which may be concluded hereafter with the approval of the League of Nations, respecting the slave traffic, the traffic in arms and ammunition, or the traffic in drugs, or relating to commercial equality, freedom of transit and navigation, aerial navigation, and postal, telegraphic, and wireless communication, or literary, artistic, or industrial property. Article number 20. The mandatory shall cooperate on behalf of the administration of Palestine so as far as religious, social, and other conditions may permit, in the execution of any common policy adopted by the League of Nations for preventing and combating disease, including diseases of plants and animals. Article number 21. The mandatory shall ensure the enactment within 12 months from this date, and shall ensure the execution of the laws of antiquities based on the following rules. The law shall ensure equality of treatment in the matter of excavations and archaeological research to the nationals of all states members of the League of Nations. 1. There are 8 requirements in this Article 21. Number 1, antiquity. Means any construction or any product of human activity earlier than the year 1700 AD. 2. The law for the protection of the antiquities shall proceed by encouragement rather than by threat. Any person who, having discovered an antiquity without being furnished with the authorization referred to in paragraph 5, reports the same to an official of the competent department shall be rewarded according to the value of the discovery. 3. No antiquity may be disposed of except to the competent department unless this department renounces the acquisition of any such antiquity. No antiquity may leave the country without an export license from the said department. 4. Any person who maliciously or negligently destroys or damages an antiquity shall be liable to the penalty to be fixed. 5. No clearing of ground or digging with the object of finding antiquities shall be permitted under penalty of fine, except to persons authorized by the competent department. 6. Equitable terms shall be fixed for expropriation, temporary or permanent, the lands which might be of historical or of archaeological interest. 7. Authorization to excavate shall only be granted to persons who show sufficient guarantees of archaeological experience. The administration of Palestine shall not, in granting these authorizations, act in such a way as to exclude scholars of any nation without good grounds. 8. The proceeds of excavations may be divided between the excavator and the competent department in a proportion fixed by that department. If division seems impossible for scientific reasons, the excavator shall receive a fair indemnity in lieu of a part of the find. Article 22. English, Arabic, and Hebrew shall be the official languages of Palestine. Any statement or an inscription that is in Arabic, that's on stamps or money in Palestine, shall be repeated in Hebrew, and any statement or inscription in Hebrew shall be repeated in Arabic. Article number 23. The administration of Palestine shall recognize the holy days of respective communities in Palestine as legal days of rest for the members of such communities. Article number 24. The mandatory shall make to the Council of the League of Nations an annual report to the satisfaction of the Council as to measures taken during the year to carry out the provisions of the mandate. Copies of all laws and regulations promulgated or issued during the year shall be communicated with the report. Article number 25. In the territories lying between the Jordan and the eastern boundary of Palestine as ultimately determined, the mandatory shall be entitled, with the consent of the Council of the League of Nations, to postpone or withhold application of such provisions of this mandate as he may consider inapplicable to the existing local conditions, and to make such provision for the administration of the territories as he may consider suitable to those conditions, provided that no action shall be taken which is inconsistent with the provisions of Articles 15, 16, and 18. Article 26. The mandatory agrees that if any dispute whatever should arise between the mandatory and other member of the League of Nations relating to the interpretation or the applications of the provisions in this mandate, such dispute, if it cannot be settled by negotiation, shall be submitted to the Permanent Court of International Justice provided for by Article 14 of the Covenant of the League of Nations. Article 27. The consent of the Council of the League of Nations is required for any modification of terms of this mandate. And Article 28, in the event of the termination of the mandate hereby conferred upon the mandatory, the Council and the League of Nations shall make such arrangements as may be deemed necessary for safeguarding in perpetuity, under guarantee of the League, the rights secured by Articles 13 and 14, and shall use its influence for securing, under the guarantee of the League, that the government of Palestine will fully honor the financial obligations legitimately incurred by the administration of Palestine during the period of the mandate, including the rights of public servants to pensions and gratuities. The present instrument shall be deposited in original in the archives of the League of Nations, and certified copies shall be forwarded by the Secretary General of the League of Nations to all members of the League. Done at London, the 24th day of July, 1922. So this was the first, I believe, attempt by Britain to be the go-between in the peace process. All right. Now you see, this was issued in 1917. Let's take a look at what Palestine looked like in around 1910. I have some old footage from Spielberg. It is the in Palestine. It's a Jewish it was communalized living called the Kibbutz. Anybody ever hear of that? It is specifically, we're going to take a look at the colony of Degania. And these were refugees from Germany and Poland that were placed in this colony to work the land and do everything that needed to be done within the confines of the colony, which means they didn't have a car, they didn't go outside of the colony, they stayed, and they shared everything. It was communalized living. Everybody rotated the labor on a daily basis. One day you plowed the field, the next day you picked oranges, the next day you washed dishes and served the food in the kitchen. And you'll see that all of these people, none of the men and the women are not covered up as the Jews are today. And there are no yarmulkes, there's no talits, there's no teflon, there's no shawls, nothing. These are refugees from Poland and Germany, and the women wear shorts, and the children were running around with no clothes on, and going into the lake or whatever. And you get a good look at what it looked like in Palestine in and around 1910. So let's take a look at this Spielberg film.
Degania, one of the oldest and most successful collective settlements in Palestine, was founded in 1909 on land of the Jewish National Fund. In 3 decades, it has grown from a cluster of pioneering huts, 60 homes, a dozen public buildings, and a sound financial record. Degania is located at the southern end of historic Lake Kinneret. It is low-lying, subtropical country. Properly tended, it is capable of astonishing fertility. Neglected, it degenerates into wilderness. 2,000 years ago, the shores of Lake Kinneret were densely populated. When the land of Israel passed into alien hands, the cities declined, the fields withered. An area fit to nourish hundreds of thousands supported a handful of shepherds and villagers in primitive oriental poverty. Degania, like the 300 other agricultural settlements of the Jewish homeland, represents the end of that long interlude of desolation. Modern methods and modern machinery have been applied to the soil. Deep plowing by tractor is used for the more than 100 acres of wheat, barley, and other grain crops. The first tractors seen in Palestine were brought in by the Jews. So were the first American combines. So was the scientific treatment of the soil. The men who came out 30 years ago from the ghettos of Europe to found this colony had never handled a plow. But they were possessed by three ideals: land, liberty, and labor. Hence their capacity to endure and their ability to learn. Hence, to get down to cases, the 8 alfalfa crops produced every year by Degania, a record not exceeded even by California. Some of the young men you see here working in the freedom of the fields of Palestine came yesterday out of the ruined Jewish communities of Germany and Poland. Side by side with the older colonists, they plow, plant, reap, build, their lives completely transformed, the horrors of persecution receding into a dim memory. For these newcomers, the violent transformation from the ghetto dweller into the land worker is easier than it was for the original founders of the colonies. Not that life is easy today, but the hunger, the malaria, the loneliness, the inexperience are gone. It is still hard work, but in a setting of success and of social warmth. The basis of the economy of Degania is a balanced mixture of cash and subsistence crops. Milk is one of the most important items. By crossbreeding and scientific feeding, the yield of local cows has been raised from 200 to 1,200 gallons per annum. The milk is sterilized and pasteurized on the colony and sent via a cooperative sales organization to Haifa, Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv. Producing item in Degania is the banana crop, 20,000 bunches a year. 12,000 boxes of orange and grapefruit, 15,000 boxes of tomatoes are shipped out of Degania every year. No colony of this size anywhere in the world has a better record. And all this would be impossible without the great irrigation system which is powered by the Rutenburg electrical station and without the equipment provided by the United Palestine Appeal. The principle of diversification as applied in Degania extends beyond the agricultural. Degania is not just a farming settlement. It is a miniature world with social and psychological as well as economic problems. A good colonist is handy at half a dozen trades. He can handle a tractor, milk a cow, mow a field, plant a tree, mix cement, and build a barn. There is also a maritime life in Degania, for Lake Kinneret is a body of water 60 miles in area, teeming with fish and capable of considerable storms. Seamanship is a sport and a trade for many young Jews of this region. On the shores of the Mediterranean, less than 50 miles from here, there are Jewish fleets of fishing boats. But Jewish sailors can get their first training on the waters of Kinneret. and they take to the water with the same skill as they took to the land. There is a saying among the colonists of Palestine: he who works the land must be able to defend his crops. More than 30 years ago, the Jews settling in Palestine made up their minds to organize their own self-defense and to rely on no hired guards. This was part of the completeness of a national revival. The shomer, or watchman, has become a tradition in the Jewish life of Palestine, and the settlement of 500,000 Jews in the homeland has cost the lives of some hundreds of devoted young men. But there has never been a lack of volunteers for the service. Today, there are in Palestine tens of thousands of young Jews trained in the use of arms. Every colony has its watchtower, its system of defenses, and its organized body of soldier farmers. The role of the women in our colonies may be less thrilling than that of the men, but it is as basic. There are domestic tasks, and there are those divisions of farm labor which call for the feminine qualities of care and attentiveness. Chicken breeding, for instance. The Jews of Palestine used to import tens of millions of eggs annually. Today they are practically independent in this item, and tomorrow they will become exporters in turn. In the vineyards, too, women take over a large proportion of the work. The grapes of Palestine rank with the world's best. Like the oranges of Palestine, they are exported in times of peace to every part of Europe. But supremely, the women on the colonies contribute to the education of the young. The pioneers of Palestine are concerned with something more than the problem of a single generation of refugees. They have always asked themselves, will the children in our colonies love the soil they are born on, cling to it, feel it as part of themselves? The answer lay in childhood training, happiness, strong associations, the Hebrew language, a feeling of belonging. These children are superbly happy, superbly balanced in outlook. The atmosphere in which they grow up is devoid of the terror and furtiveness which haunts the life of Jewry in so many parts of the world. There may be danger here, but not the humiliations and degradations of anti-Semitism. There are no scars on the minds of these little ones. Here is the nerve center of Degania, its business administration. Degania is paying back its loans to the United Palestine Appeal. The money is used to settle other colonists. Degania is also taking in and training regular quotas of newcomers. Yesterday, they were refugees. Today, they are saviors of refugees. And now for the leisure hours of Degania. When the day draws to a close, gong and bell sound the call for dinner. Then you may see them assembling from the fields, workshops, and outposts of the colony. All the types, the old hand and the newcomer, the idealist who has given 30 years to the building of the enterprise, the refugee for whom it was prophetically built. The most important meal of the day is usually taken in common. In this, as in many other features, the Kibbutz or collective differs from the other types of colonies, like the semi-cooperative or the individualist farm. All three types are well developed in Palestine and have their protagonists and enthusiasts within the country and throughout the Jewish world which has helped to build them. There is room for all these types and need for all of them, for there is no regimentation of life in the Jewish homeland. Before the days of radio, the founders of the Jewish colonies of Palestine were aware of one great psychological and spiritual danger: that settling on the soil, they might relapse into an ignorant, reactionary peasant type. So from the beginning, they worked out a program of continuous intellectual activity. Discussion groups function throughout the year. Among the participants you see here are boys and girls from Germany, the Youth Aliyah, who have been in the country only a few months and are already completely at home. The level of discussion on modern problems is as high here as in the same age groups in any of the world's largest cities. But what the world's largest cities cannot offer is the beauty of the life of Degania, symbolized by the great gardens which are the pride of the colony. Even if there were no persecution of Jews anywhere in the world, the life of the Jewish colonies of Palestine would be a significant addition to Jewish value and Jewish morale throughout the world. But in an age of trial which challenges Jewry at every point, this center of salvation represents the greatest single act of rescue in modern Jewish history.
Okay, so you get a good look at the communal lifestyle where everybody pulls their weight and all their needs are met. But the only thing is they don't have any wealth. They can't acquire any wealth. They don't have any money to buy a car or anything like that. They just completely, all the work and effort is there to run the system. And in return, they have all their needs met. Now, this kind of brings to my mind what it's like to be in communism. What the New World Order would be like under communism. You know, everybody has to look out for each other, like the masks that we wear today. It's proven that they don't prevent us from catching the coronavirus. The fabric in the masks that we wear are not rated, hospital rated to prevent the intake of bacterial microorganisms. And yet we have to wear them. It's mind conditioning, a mind conditioning to wear this for the greater good of the community. See? What they're doing in that kibbutz is for the greater good of the collective, of the group. It's a cult mentality. And I hope some of that you can see, you know, as you watch that little short from Spielberg, from Palestine, in and around 1910. Anyway, I have another peace treaty called the Oslo Accord, which I'll be back, and I'm going to go over that with you in the next video. You can look for this video in the playlist, Unraveling the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict, on my YouTube channel, Judith Carlone Levi Ministries. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.